Good morning, everybody. Well, what an interesting experience we're having with the computer. You know what? Just because I was thinking to myself that really, if you add Thor's hammer to Mom's glove and maybe toss in a feather boa, that pretty much sums me up, doesn't it? With the red hair. I can't believe how crazy this all is. I don't know if I'm going to make something go away here. I hope not. The picture seems small. What if I do that? What happens? Nothing. Okay. I'm, t- I'm going to put the hammer down. Hammer down. I'm going to put the hammer down. I'm going to put the hammer down and just kind of riff on what has been happening the last couple of days. So, you know what is amazing? Here's what's amazing. We're finding our ways through this. The computer crash, the weird, you're not allowed to do this, something else. Oh, yeah, those museum people who couldn't tell the difference between enduring popularity and puppets. And you know, when you start, slow mode is on. What do I do? Welcome to live. Learn more. Why isn't that doing anything? Okay. I'm going to hope that you're here. I'm going to hope that everything is okay. I'm going to hope that you can see me. I noticed quite that before. Oh, what if I do that? Okay, we want that. All messages are visible. There we go. That's better. And what about this? Participants tag old thing. All right. Okay. There it is. All right. I'm sorry. We don't know exactly in this moment what is wrong with my computer. And I now have two talented tech support people working on it. And now, the first time it went south on Tuesday, right after my video. I mean, immediately after my video. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then we were back on Saturday. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So it took 3 full days. So when I turned on my computer yesterday morning, it wasn't there. The lights were on, but no one was home. and you find yourself thinking, but why? What? Why? How? And it's. Can I? I'm sorry. I'm just distracted for a second. Can I get rid of that? Can I get rid of this? Can I? Welcome to chat. Remember to go. Okay. There's too many things I'm supposed to try to understand in this moment, and I only want to talk to you. So here's what seems to have happened. What seems to have happened is possibly a rush to keep going regardless. And I know that I'm guilty of that. I rush to keep going from my childhood. You know, gypsy global travelers who never entirely know when the message is going to come to start packing. Like all those old westerns when they fire the gun and you're supposed to dance. So if you don't know when that's coming, you don't really know. You know what? I'm going to move this. Can I move this like that? Is that better? Yes, that's better. All right. So I'm in a different space in my office because I have the pleasure of piggybacking on somebody else's computer. It's wonderful. And my computer is over there looking off into the distance, sighing periodically. When you're a global kid and you know that you only have a limited time to get in the boat and begin to row, you don't kind of stand on the dock and say, so are there lessons? And when do we get a break? You get in the boat and you kind of wing it. You kind of just start. And sometimes that works. And sometimes people are saying, "What are you doing?" I don't know. And you learn as you go. What's on the job training? And so I forget that this is how I'm kind of wired for operation. This is my what operating system, I guess. And so I never say to myself, "Oh, I don't know if I could do that." I say, "Well, how hard could that be? I mean, what's the worst that could happen?" And then I sometimes I find out. And but again, they're not life shattering things that happen. They're not devastating things that go wrong. They're glitches. And in the overall scheme of things, when you look at people with significant problems, they're nothing. They're the size of our problems in many cases are inflated by us because well, it's us, and we're looking at us close up in the magnifying mirror. And so it's difficult to really know if you should be more worried. You just keep going, and then all of a sudden, if you step off a cliff, you should have been more worried. On the other hand, if you're paying close attention, if you're fairly smart and you're paying close attention, you're listening closely to the instructions that people are yelling at you, you can get in step fairly quickly. And then, as with everything, you perfect it over time. Practice makes perfect. So what I think is often a problem is this. I think this thing I'm talking about all the time with pivotry, we keep saying it's not that bad. And we keep saying it because in a lot of cases it isn't that bad. In a lot of cases, well, yes, okay, that wheel is wonky, but if I lean this way, then I don't put my weight on it, and so it's okay. But there's only so many things that you can um, deal with that way, and there's only so many um, times you can say it's getting slow, but it's not that bad. Charles, oh, how nice to see you. In for a quick minute at work on break. Thank you. Thank you. You're my first visitor today. It's wonderful to see you. And you'll be able to catch up later. And I really appreciate you stopping by. I hope everything's okay. How's your tooth? Nod. Don't nod. What am I thinking? Say something if the tooth is okay. Right? It's, our teeth, our smile, it's how we greet the world. When we had to wear masks, we felt that part of us was missing because we couldn't use our facial recognition to say hello to people. I spent the first year of COVID doing good. It was a clean break. Oh, excellent. Excellent. Um, I spent the first year of COVID with my mask on, smiling at people, trying to help them feel better. And then I realized what I was doing, and I said, I behind my mask, I'm smiling at you. I hope you know. And they would say, "Oh, me too." And so we were all trying to, "Hey, Freddie, good morning." We were all during COVID with our masks on, trying really hard to compensate for the fact that we couldn't use our forever tool to show people we come in peace. We come with pizza. We couldn't use it. It was gone. And I think maybe that was part of the anxiety and the frustration with the masks. You know, the smart part of your brain knows that wearing the mask, if there's germs and whatnot, um, is a good thing. But the rest of us said, "But I can't greet. I can't tell people anything. They can't hear me. I can't hear them." And we inflate the problems sometimes because we're panicking. And, when Charles had his tooth incident, he was, oh gosh, one more thing. And that's perfectly normal. When I had my surprise yesterday morning, when I turned on my computer and it was sitting there, not ignoring me. My computer gave me the cold shoulder, and I thought, what did I say? Was it something I said? Um, we tend to panic and be upset. And I think for all of us at this moment, we need door number 3. There are people who say, "Oh well, we can fix it," and there's people who say, "Oh, we need door number 3." And I'm not quite sure what door number 3 is, except that I think it's, well, that's interesting. And as a very dear friend of mine says, it's tough to do. It's tough to do. However, when we're faced with a surprise, if we can teach ourselves to take 5 steps back, either physically, literally, or just mentally, or count to 5, and then give ourselves permission to have that distance to say, well, that's interesting. What do I do now? As opposed to pretend it's not a problem at all, which is denial, or kvetch and moan and yell, which is completely unhelpful. And the reason I say that is because at some point we have to figure out what to do next. We're not going to stand still like Lot's wife, who turned into a pillar of salt, and wait for it to fix itself. We have to take action somehow. And yelling and throwing it out the window is an action, but unhelpful. So that start to my day yesterday was, you know what? I'm going to say this just for a second. It's lovely to see you both. It's so important for me, for everyone I know, to feel that we got this. Yeah, we got this. Even when we don't got this, it's so important to give ourselves that little, attaboy before, rather than waiting until after. It's a very interesting thing a lot of people don't know. When you go into a restaurant and you, okay, bye, Charles. Have a good day. When you go into a restaurant, when you go anywhere where they tip, where they expect tips, a lot of people don't know this. Do you know what TIP stands for? The TIP? It's really interesting, and it makes a lot of sense. The letters stand for to ensure promptness. And it began in England when people were traveling by carriage, and they would be traveling long distances because horses could only do so many miles or kilometers a day. They would have these stopovers, these pubs in the country, and there would be a stable out back. And if you were continuing on your journey and you were in a hurry, while they changed horses, that gave you time to go in and have a bite to eat and something to drink. So if you were in a hurry, you took a coin and you dropped it into a wooden box, and it went clonk. And the bartender, the barkeep, the waiters, the wait staff heard it, and they would realize that this table was the express lane. They were in a hurry. So the sound of the coin, the metal coin, dropping into the wooden box would cause people to go to your table right away and say to whoever knew what was going on, "How long do we have?" And somebody in charge would say, "We're only here as long as it takes to change the horses." So right away, you would be asked what you wanted, and you would be served something cold to eat, but ready-made, and something to drink right away before other customers who might have been there first. The reason was the other customers who had not dropped a coin into the box had time. We don't need to leave until, an hour's time. Well, fine then. You'll get served next. We have to serve these people first. That's very interesting because what it did was it put the tip money in the hands of the servers who deserved it as an incentive rather than a reward. So it means it's a very immediate and proactive thing. It means that the server knows that they're given an opportunity and it's up to them to hustle to get it done. If they don't get it done, if the food isn't served, if the drinks aren't served, if they aren't prompt, if they aren't good at their job, everybody's going to complain. Everybody. The owner, the carriage owner, the stable, everyone's going to complain, and that server, that bartender, is going to be in trouble. That makes more sense than people sitting at a table and the waiter either not aware or overwhelmed has no way of knowing who his immediate and urgent clients are, and is basically leaping out of the airplane without a net. They don't know what the context is, and they don't know. And now somebody would say to me, well, they should be serving, they should be on the top of their game for everybody. Sure, they should. Yeah. And without dieting, everybody should be a size 4. And that doesn't happen. So incentivize people. Thank them in advance. Welcome them with open arms. Smile and wave in the way that you have, not the way that I have. Smile and wave, say hello, thank them in advance. Say, it's so good to see you. Tell them they matter at the beginning. I try to at the beginning. I always do at the end. And so I'm my own self doing it backwards. However, I also believe one added thing, that the last thing you hear from me should be that you matter. The last thing, as I leave, as you leave. I'll see you next time. It's amazing. You matter. Gives you a feel good. Gives you the attaboy on the exit. And there's nothing wrong with 2 attaboys. There's no reason to skimp on telling people how awesome they are. There's no reason, especially when life is complicated. So, and speaking of complicated, were we talking about my computer? Yes. So here's the thing that happens. When people have a problem, they don't always explain to those surrounding them why they're in difficulty. I often say to people, especially people who are tech troubleshooters, their brains are wired differently than mine, and they ask me to do things that can sometimes feel overwhelming, and it takes me longer to figure out how the dots connect, because I'm A, new at this, and B, my brain is wired differently. And so I will say and remind people who are doing their best to help me, they're jumping in, they're leaning in to help. I'm not good at this. I'm not as good at this as I am at other things. So bear with me. I really want to know how to be helpful in this process. But when you're upset, when you're nervous, when you really truly believe you have a looming deadline, it's easy to lose your cool. It's easy to get anxious and hyper and snap at people. It's unhelpful. It accomplishes nothing. In fact, you know what's really crazy? When you snap at people, you actually elevate your own adrenaline and you stay in that anxious, angry, high energy state. It accomplishes nothing. So the first thing I wanted to do today was talk about the reality and say, it's difficult to say, give me a second, I need to breathe through this. Okay, now what do you want me to do? And bear with me and try our best to be helpful if we're not the tech expert. And even the tech experts, a lot of the time, are baffled. They go away and scratch their heads and they talk amongst themselves in that language that they have. And eventually, sometimes something gets fixed. So that was the first thing I wanted to talk about. The second thing I want to talk about is when things like this happen and we have a chance to take a step back, what I'm suggesting we look for is what good thing appears to be a byproduct of this. And I know that when you're in a hurry and you're working on something and maybe you forgot to save what you were doing, and now you know you have to start over and you feel you have a deadline, it's easy to say, I don't know what you're talking about and this is a waste of my time. Why should I listen to you? Here's the thing. Last night, when I'd had my wonderful tag team, 2 tech experts talking to me on a joint phone call, me mostly listening there, thinking, going, I don't know what they're saying. However, it was really exciting to be part of what was a team effort on Abby's behalf. And I thought, after that call was over, and I thanked them, and I, got ready for bed, I thought, how lucky, what a great gift. And this opportunity right now to notice it, that these 2 techs felt it was a problem they wanted to collaborate on to solve it for me. Part of it is for their own, we fix that, sure. But they outreached for me because I matter to them in some way. And that reminder is really important. And it's not a thing to brush off. When people prove to you, show you in thought, word, or deed that you matter, it doesn't fix the presenting problem, but it's a reinforcement of friendship. It's a reinforcement of attachment, of belonging, of community, of tribe. I'm not exactly a standing member of the tech tribe, but maybe I'm their fluffy mascot that they, like to pat on the head and hand me a cookie every now and again. Do I know what I'm doing? No. And they can roll their eyes, shake their heads, and then have a serious grown-up conversation about what's wrong with my computer. It's really important in the times when we are stressed to give ourselves the opportunity just a second, Freddie, I'm just going to finish my sentence. To give ourselves the opportunity to say, I matter. Ice Wallow, come. Hi. Hello, Ice Wallow. Hi. How are you? Welcome. Freddie, I'm known for being a genius. Technically, I'm a borderline genius. What's the difference, Freddie? What's the difference between borderline? Is it the numbers? Is it like you do the testing? How does that work? I am known for being quite fearless in many respects. However, I am not jump out of perfectly good airplane fearless. I'm fearless in terms of, I wonder what that's about. I wonder, I can probably do that. Let's see if I can do that. However, I don't do things with gravity and heights and leaping off things that appear to be keeping me alive. So I'm borderline fearless. So I swallow. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the series. This is the first time I've seen you. Um, I'm talking today about disasters that bring with them the element of surprise, because yesterday morning my computer had crashed, and when I turned it on, it just sat there sulking. And the reason it was a setback for me, more than any crash of a computer is a setback, is that it had just crashed 2 weeks ago and I had thought everything was fine. It's like, you have a breakup with somebody and you go through all the steps of making up and everything is wonderful and you exchange the flowers and the candy and the hugs and everything. And then all of a sudden, 3 days later, it's bad again. So clearly something wasn't addressed. So I'm now not on my computer. I'm on somebody else's computer and everything's just a little off. Things aren't where I expect them to be, which is okay. It is the way we must endure when we are finding our way through. So this business of what are we famous for, that I asked this morning, what are you famous for, is what I mean by that is how people think of us. Now, I have this background in some show business, and there are people who think of me as a TV mom, or they think of me as they think of me as a troll, or they think of me as a Care Bear, or they think of me as whatever it was that they used to see me do on a fairly regular basis. People who came to all my live stage shows who say, we miss you. We miss seeing you on stage. I miss seeing me on stage too, and I miss seeing you in the audience. Am I going to rectify that? Sure I am. Absolutely. Why would you not try and keep doing the thing that you love to do, that you're famous for? The thing is, we're famous for more than that one moment in the spotlight. We're famous for something that is intrinsically us, that our friends think of when they hear our name or see our picture or some silly thing we did pops into their head. They associate all of that with an idea of us, how they have categorized us. Best friend, worst cook, whatever. And it's important to sometimes remind ourselves that we are famous for things that others value, that are not about a specific job, and they're not about a specific event or a specific place. The things that we are truly famous for are transferable. We carry them with us because they're part of us. And it's important to talk about that, to throw this discussion out there, is that right now, the ground is still not entirely solid beneath our feet. Right now, people are saying to themselves, I don't know if I want to do this job anymore. I don't know if I want to live here anymore. I don't know if I want this anymore. I'm exhausted now. The bloom is off the rose. The excitement is gone. I don't know what I want to do. And if I leave, how will I start again? And if we have this conversation, and if I plant this seed in your mind, that how you start again is the way you began the last time. You walked in and you said, hi, I'm new here. Show me the ropes. And you bring with you who you are and what you're famous for. Are you the detail person? Are you the one that remembers everybody's name? I need you standing beside me. I do this crazy thing. When I meet people, I'm on visual record. I'm looking at them. I'm not checking them out. I'm looking at them. I'm looking at their animation. I'm looking at their smile. I'm listening to the sound of their voice. And I don't necessarily catch their name. And by the time I realize I haven't caught their first name, they've told me their last name, and I didn't catch that either. And now I'm screwed, because quite often they'll be the people who remember every single detail I ever say to them. And I feel as though I have let them down. If I had the wherewithal when I meet someone new, and you know what? Now that I'm saying it, I'm going to make a note to myself. This is what I'm going to do moving forward. You see how helpful this is? I'm going to say to people when I meet them, "Hi, I'm Thing. I just want to tell you that I meet people. I'm on visual record, and there are times when I simply don't hear your name because I'm too fascinated by your eyes or your ears or your hair or something. So if I forget it and I have to ask, please don't be offended. It wasn't that I don't care. It's that I cared about something else first. And won't that resolve it? Of course it will. Never occurred to me until this moment that I could do that. That's what I'm talking about. This kind of video, this kind of conversation that you and I have, this is our opportunity to brainstorm together. This is our opportunity to say, I want to tell you something. We can do it by ourselves in the room, but when I do it and you're not here, I feel a little silly walking around with If I know we're having a conversation, then I can say, that was a brilliant idea. And it came in the midst of me brainstorming with you. So what we're famous for is intrinsically us. And there's a great story I remember someone telling me a long time ago. There was an actor who appeared as the starring character on two very popular television series, way, way back in the mists of time. The first one was Father Knows Best. The second one was Marcus Welby, MD. There was another series more recently. One was called Mayberry, RFD. And I just now can't remember the name of the second one. The point was, the first two shows starred the same actor. The second two shows starred Andy Griffith. How was it possible that they could cast those actors in sequential series that had a similar appeal to a similar audience and yet not blur the line? How was that possible? And here's the answer. They were casting his personality. They were casting the way audiences felt about him. And it didn't really matter whether it was a dad or a doctor. He was the guy who knew best for you. And he cared. He came to your house. In Andy Griffith's situation, he was the guy who got it right, who made sure that people behaved properly. And then it was in a kind and gentle, small town America, soft sell way. In one, he was a sheriff, and the other, he was a lawyer. And in both cases, people enjoyed him because of his personality and how they felt about him. In a lot of cases, you'll say, oh, I wonder what the show is going to be like with him starring. I love him in everything he does. Okay, then these people can be transferred. They can be transferred. Why? Because people are watching them because of some quality they bring. So what's true in television is true in life, because art imitates life, really. All the TV shows are based on something that really happened. Even Gene Roddenberry. Star Trek was really cowboys and Indians when you think about it. What you have is an opportunity to let people know you for who you are, not the job you do, not the role you play. I've told this story before some time ago. I have a very dear friend who's a therapist, and she was invited to go to one of these VIP business consulting firms that had partnered with a community outreach, and it was for decision makers and CEOs who had been downsized. So one minute they were VP marketing, and the next minute they're not, because the job disappeared. Not because of anything they had done or failed to do, but because the job had disappeared. And a lot of this has happened since COVID. Companies have closed. And a CEO, terrible story of a CEO who ended his life after a significant investigation into the reversal of fortunes for their company. Okay, there had to be a door number 3. There had to be. And tragically, it wasn't visible. It wasn't reachable, either for the company or that poor soul who decided there was no other way. When we can get together with people who have known who they are based on what they do and what they have, they are set adrift. They are rudderless when what they have disappears, when what they do goes away. I think one of the biggest challenges, and I know later this evening when Charles has a chance to watch the video after work, Charles lives in an area of the U.S. where there's a lot of hurricane activity. And you every year as the season approaches, you cross fingers and eyes and toes and elbows and whatnot, hoping that it doesn't hit you and your loved ones. When people have worked hard and are proud of their home, and their home is their castle, it's the place they feel safe, and a storm comes, and they retreat to safety and come back, and everything is gone. The disconnect and the confusion and the agony and the grief is real, and it's crippling because the emotion is so overwhelming. It completely overshadows and overpowers the part of our brain that can think and plan and do, because the emotional brain takes care of 90% of our activity. If it is completely horrified and terrified and scrambling to feel safe, you're not going to have a lot of coherent logical thought going on. Most of that reaction is driven by the fact that we are identifying who we are and how much we matter based on what we have. I had something like that happen, not nearly as terrible, certainly survivable. I had a frivolous lawsuit brought against me quite a few years ago now, by someone who decided that they were going to see what they could do to take that showbiz person down a peg. I'll teach her a lesson. So they sued me. And by the time it became clear that it was frivolous and it had no relevance, it had been in the news. It had been featured as the lead story. It was front page in the newspapers. And in one of the newspapers, they printed everything about me. They printed my resume, which included my address and my phone number. Well, thanks very much, except really? Now I've got people calling and harassing, and I've got people driving by and yelling for no reason, except that it gave them something to do. I was devastated. And I'd never had anything like that happen to me before. And I felt that everything that I had achieved had never been real, and I had no value, and I didn't matter. And not only didn't I matter, but I was an object of scorn because there were the facts. And I got a very interesting phone call from someone I had worked with in the industry who said, I'm going to tell you two things that are really important. And the first one is that the only reason people behave like this is because they envy you and they don't know how else to express it. The fact that it's costing you pain and it's causing you sorrow and it's causing you a lot of distress and costing you money is their way of feeling there. It doesn't actually improve who they are, but that's why they're doing it. It's not really anything to do with you. You just happen to be the one they chose, and they could have chosen anyone. And I said, really? And she said, absolutely. And she said, and the other thing you need to remember is this: people don't remember stuff like this. It stops being the topic of conversation really fast. And when you have to go to court and you have to defend yourself, and it's going to cost you a lot of money, you may lose things, but you can get those things again. We can always get things again. So when it's time to let them go, just remember it's temporary. And I thanked her. She made me cry because those things were really scaring me because I had no tools because it had never happened. And so there are times in our lives, whether it's post-COVID, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a job, whether it's the loss of someone that we cared deeply about, whether it's a computer crash, whether there's a structural issue with the house, they come to do a thing and say, oh, it's toxic and you have to leave, it's condemned. These are temporary. These are things you achieved once and you will again. You'll achieve them in different ways. We always achieve them in different ways, but we achieve them again as long as we are open to it, as long as we focus on the fact that we deserve, we bring, we matter, and we recognize those same qualities in all the people around us who are doing their best to keep treading water and finding the time and the energy to reach out and say, are you okay? We make it by living that way. We survive by living that way. We thrive by living that way. By recognizing what we're truly famous for and owning it, being proud of it. I navigate without necessarily knowing where I'm going. I focus really intently. People who know me, sometimes if I'm really focused on something and you're talking, you're standing right next to me, I can't hear you. It's not that I'm ignoring you. I literally can't hear you. I've shut everything down and my focus is this narrow, tiny point because it's hyper focus. And I want this fixed. And then I kind of snap out of it and say, I'm so sorry, I didn't hear you. I'm famous for doing that. I'm famous for recovery. I'm famous for laughing at my mistakes because it has long been clear to me that I am less than perfect. And it has also long been clear to me that when I am doing my best to tap dance my way through things, I will make very interesting mistakes. And the likelihood is very big that people will see it. There's no point in shaming myself and blaming myself and guilting myself for the error. That does me no good. What does me good is laughing at it. Because when we laugh, positive endorphins, positive release. And that positive release changes everything, changes the tone, changes the mood, changes our outlook. And so I always try my best to choose that, to do that, to lean into that. So who I'm famous for is showing up. Who I'm famous for is caring that you know you matter. Who I'm famous for is being absolutely certain that life is not a spectator sport. We are not spectators. People who treat us that way got it wrong. People who say, just go over there, got it wrong. People who say, no, I got it wrong. We are not spectators. We are participants. We're in this together. So the good news is that you are not in the computer predicament together with me. You are reaping the benefits of my outreach to people who have said, the videos matter to Abby. We got to figure out a way to get her onto a computer so she can do her videos. Because my commitment is to you. I've said videos twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 10 a.m., Eastern Daylight Time, Standard Time, whatever time, New York time. And I mean it. And if I can't do it, I do my best to let you know and have a really valued explanation if I'm not able to do that. Because you matter. Because you're my tribe. And it's an honor to be part of the team. So I'm going to stop a little early today because I have this computer sitting over there sighing in the dark, calling my name, and I have to take care of it. I chose you first, though. So after the video, do this for you. Think about what you're really famous for. Think about what you bring. And when the video's over, in the comments, when you like it and you've subscribed, in the comments, tell me so that we can all see it. What are you famous for? What is it that people say, oh yeah, amazing this. Oh yeah, crazy that. Tell us. We'd love to know. I'd love to know. And after that, it's Thursday. We're clearly going to be spending the weekend fixing the computer, figuring out what to do. So I know that my days are busy. Be good to you on the weekend, right? Give yourself permission to take the deep breaths, rest and relax, do a little self-care. No matter how busy you are, you can always take 10 minutes at some point, even if it's just before you go to sleep. Freddie says, where you lead, we will follow. Oh, Freddie, you're lovely. You're lovely. If nobody else has told you that today, it doesn't mean it isn't true. Thank you. Okay, be good to you. And for heaven's sakes, remember your loved ones. Give them a hug, even if it's virtual. Reach out and say, okay, I'm sending you a hug. I've been listening to Abby Hagyard. She says, I got to hug you. So I guess you're up. Do that. It feels great. And I will see you by hook or by crook, one way or the other, channeling my inner Viking. I will see you next week on Tuesday, right here on YouTube, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Fair enough? Join me. Thanks for watching. You're awesome.